Well, hello folks, welcome to this birthday edition of Ian's Studio Live. It's the 62nd live stream, which started exactly 1 year ago, well, not today, tomorrow. So this is effectively the anniversary. It's the end of a full year of live streams. So welcome to the show, everyone, and it's great to have you with me. So let's get a move on. And I'm just going to start by just making a very quick appeal. Please subscribe, like and share if you haven't done so already. Those are the things which help make this live stream more visible to the rest of the world. And if you're not a member of my Facebook group, which is connected very closely with this live stream, then the link is down below. Please follow that and join. And if you haven't signed up for my newsletter, again, link down below. Please sign up for that, and you'll get regular updates that way as well. So as ever, the links, as I say, down below, and my thanks to everyone who's already done all of those. And if you haven't, please give them a go. Right. This is an interactive live stream. What do I mean by that? We have a live chat going on alongside for the duration of the live stream, hosted by YouTube. Please say hello in there. And I've been greeting people in the chat as we're waiting to go live. And I think I've said hello to everyone. Oh, S Numbers just joined as well. So hi. Nice to have you with us this evening. That's not just for questions, though. It's for chat. So please say hello to each other. Please comment on what I'm saying. And let's make this an interactive live stream. So what have we got on the show tonight? Well, we're going to be looking back at 1 year of Ian's Studio Live. I've got 3 short clips to share with you. From past live streams. They are only short, trust me. We're going to look at the results of the survey that I've put out, and thank you to everyone for your feedback on that. I really do appreciate that. Good evening, Andy Grady, who's just joined us as well. And we're going to be looking forward as well. We're looking to what the shape of the live stream is going to be in the well, for the next, well, I say for the next year, for the next few months. We need to be dynamic about these things. And I've also got 6 hints and tips, very short hints and tips to help you with your photography. So those will be scattered throughout the evening. And at the end, I've got our member photo of the week, which I'll be looking at, giving a little bit of commentary on, and sharing why I've chosen that. So stay tuned, it might be your photo. Okay, so let's get on with this first tip. And I was hoping to actually have what I wanted here at the studio. I can't find it. I think it must be at home. My first quick tip to help your photography, if you haven't got one, get a long TTL flash extension cable. It's one of those things I take with me when I go traveling, and it's really, really useful. Mine is 3 meters in length. I would say that's about the minimum sort of length I'd want with it. And it's an absolutely brilliant way of very, very quickly getting off-camera flash. Let me show you an example image. Here's one I prepared earlier. This was at a hotel I was staying at, and this was quite a dark area near the pool. And I just loved this sort of setup where you could have your evening meal. I wanted to photograph it, but I knew if I put the flash on camera, it would just cast shadows in all the wrong places, and it would make it's very flat lighting coming straight from the camera. So the easiest thing to do was I put one end of the cable on my camera, on top of the camera, other end on the flash gun, and move the flash gun as far off to one side as I could, so that the light was coming in at an angle which gives a much more pleasing lighting effect. Now, because it's TTL, which stands for through the lens, it means I didn't have to do anything. I could let the camera and the flash gun work out the lighting for me. So it's very, very quick to put in extra light on a scene. So much so that one of the other ways I use it when I'm traveling is I get my wife to hold the flash gun with at the end of the cable, and I'll tell her, right, just point it over there, and I give her a rough direction, but I know that if I'd said here, she might hold it here or she might hold it there. So the fact that it's TTL means the exposure is going to be right. It's a very, very quick way of getting off camera flash on the move with minimal kit. The only thing you need is your flash gun and this cable, and they retail for about 25 to 30 quid on the likes of Amazon. So they're not mega expensive, and it's the one bit of kit I always comment about that I always make sure I pack when I'm traveling. So that was tip number one. Let's move on. Let's start by looking back, and I want to share with you a very short video for those who never saw it. This is how the live stream began 1 year ago. Well, welcome to In Studio Live, our very first live streaming event from the studio. Now, how this is going to go is anybody's guess. We've practiced, we've tried out the technology, and then about 20 minutes ago, everything started to fail. Screens stopped working, microphones stopped working, I stopped working. The whole thing started to fall apart. So hopefully, it's all going to be okay. If there are problems, do let us know in chat. We'll flip over and have a look at the chat screen every so often. So first of all, welcome everyone to the event. Let me introduce Rick, who's sitting beside me. For those who may not know, Rick has the studio opposite, and it's neighbours. Yep. And it was also Rick's idea to do live streaming.
So if this goes horribly wrong, it's on me. So
yep.
My bad. There we go. Yeah.
Right, that is how it all began. And if it goes horribly wrong, it's still on Rick. That's my excuse. I've had one question in about that already. Gary Platt wants to know how many people watched the first show. I can't actually remember how many were on live, but I think we had about a dozen, something like that. So we have grown since then. We've got 15 watching now. Yeah, it's taken a while. Yeah, it varies on that. And of course, a lot of people do watch on replay. But things have changed a lot since then. The logo changed, introductions changed. I lost my co-host within 2 weeks. Due to COVID, and one day I'll welcome him back into the studio to join me for these live streams, hopefully before our second anniversary. So that is how it all began. And well, the survey, let's talk about this survey. First of all, thank you to everyone who completed it. I really, really appreciate that. One of the things about working for yourself and being self-employed is both a good thing and a bad thing, and that is you don't have to go through an annual appraisal with your boss, which is also a bad thing because you don't get feedback. So I thought it's the birthday of the live stream. Let's treat this survey as my annual appraisal. How did I do, and what am I going to do to improve for the coming year? Which means part of me absolutely hates it. I hate being told I've got things wrong, but I do like to know I've got things wrong so that I can improve on there. this is really what I want to talk about initially, is looking at that feedback and making sure I actually understand it. So if my analysis of it is wrong, folks, tell me in the live chat what's going on. And I do find it very helpful. I did find it very helpful. Right, I've already had one comment saying the 5-minute introduction seems better than the 20 minutes longer version. Actually, let me just very quickly talk about that. There was a reason for those longer introductions. One of the bits of advice I was given when I was researching live streams was to have a good introduction, because people don't join at the start, and they miss your first item if you go straight into it. So I was told have a reasonable length introduction on there, but I think it just got too long and too repetitive. And as you'll see, that's one of the things that's come up in the survey, and one of the things I'm addressing on there. So first of all, I found it interesting, the demographic of people who actually responded. Had 22 people respond to the survey, which isn't bad. And majority of people say they rarely miss an episode. Some watch most weeks, and only a handful are in the category of only seen one or two, or used to watch and stopped, and just one person who's never watched it, and they did give me the reason for that as well. So it was an interesting breakdown of people, and I'm glad it's mainly the people who are regular, because you are the people who know what goes on, and your feedback in some senses carries a lot more weight with this. So I then asked I listed through the different types of content, and I got you to rate from really enjoy down to I'll fast forward through this if I can, and then I included I haven't seen this category. And the way SurveyMonkey works is you can analyze that, and you get a table like the one over my shoulder, which shows, this is ordered in ranking of what's most important to people. And surprise, surprise, right at the bottom is the introduction on there. And right at the top, again, no real surprise, but the training and tutorials came out at the top. Then the ones in the middle, I realized after a while, as I was looking at this, there's a problem with, I was going to say with their analysis, but it's not, it's with how I asked the question. And each of the possible responses are given a ranking between 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, where 1 is the top level, really enjoyable, and 5 is I'll fast forward through it. But then it applies 6 if you said, I haven't seen this. And that kind of skewed the results on some of the sections. So I exported that data, and I did the maths myself, and I've come up with a slightly different table, and it's this one. And what we can see on this is right at the top, photography tutorials and training are the most important. The introduction, surprise, surprise, is the least important. Now, I am really worried about the 2 people who rated it as being something that they really enjoy and find helpful. If you let me know who you are, folks, I can put you in contact with a good counsellor. Seriously. It's no surprise that the tutorials were at the top. The others, the next 3, depending on how you analysed it, took the next places. As you can see, the next most popular one for really enjoyable was actually image feedback, but it didn't do so well on somewhat enjoyable and take it or leave it, which meant it kind of went down the rankings a little bit. If you apply that result, that method, then live demos came out really high up, and Q&A, pre-prepared Q&A, comes pretty high up. So I would say those 3 are probably the next key areas. So we know that the training's top, those three, and then this is what I found a little bit surprising now, was looking at the bottom of this. What ranked worse, other than the introduction, was Lightroom. And that came as a real shock to me, that Lightroom came in so far down on the list, because, well, it's an important tool to me. And I know people tend to see me as a Lightroom guru, and I just kind of assume most people are using Lightroom and want to learn Lightroom. So that was really useful to know that. And the Photoshop training, which I've only done a little bit of on the Wednesday nights, is a lot higher. It's a mid one, which is higher than I thought it was going to be. So I was quite surprised by all that. Once I'd analysed it, removing the people who'd not seen from the categories on there. So I think the jury is slightly out on the image feedback one because of some of the comments I received. So let's move on a little bit and look at some of the other stats that I got back from this. And I was asking, which do you prefer, Sundays or Wednesdays? And again, I suppose this was no surprise that the majority of people said Sundays, which is the tutorial stuff. A reasonable number said both equally, but there's a significant number who prefer the Wednesday nights. And that was a lot higher than I thought it was going to be. But having said that, the next one sheds a bit more light on it. And that is, if we only had one show per week, I asked what format would it take. Most people said it should be both tutorial and feedback. And a significant, next was mainly tutorial. A few said alternate between the two, but nobody, and I think this is the most significant thing, nobody said mainly feedback. And I think that's borne out with some of the comments I got as well, where people are saying it's a bit much sitting through that number of items of feedback, and that I should reduce them. So thank you for that on there. Now, the next one is the quite contentious one. How long should the live stream be? Only one person said under 30 minutes, which was never going to happen. Sorry to that person. A few said 30 to 45, but the majority was 3/4 of an hour to an hour, with a sizable number, anything over an hour, hour 15, hour 30 on there, quite sizable on that. So I think from my understanding of that, taking an average, I think that the average person round about an hour is probably going to be about the length. So we'll see. Right, okay, so what have we got in the comments so far? Yeah, Peter saying, actually, let's let you see the comments. Peter saying that the 5-minute intro that I put in, again, based on people's feedback, I've cut it right down this time. That's much better. Then we've got Michael joining. Hi, Michael, on there. So nothing else. So if you disagree with my analysis, do let me know on there. But that's where I think we got from that. I'm going to talk about the comments that were left and summarize some of those in a moment. But let's move on to our next quick tip for the night. And this is about batteries with no charge in them. And I'm talking about your AA's that you use for speed lights, etc. Yeah. But you can apply this first trick to any kind of battery. Now, I need to change my display to, no, not that one, so you can see things a little bit better. When my batteries are in these cases, the question is, if it's just like that, are these charged batteries or are they used ones that need to be recharged? Now, I know some people do it by putting them into different pockets in their bags and things like that. My little trick for it is to get a piece of card And what I got was a bit of red card. I hope you can see this. And then on the other side of it, I got a green marker, which you can't see because we're on a chroma key background. It looks brown wall to you, but that is actually green. Trust me, chroma key green. And what I do is, when these are batteries which are freshly charged, I fold it over so that both sides appear green. And when they are uncharged, I fold it over so both sides appear red. And then I just pop that inside the case with the batteries. Then I know when I pick up the case whether these batteries need charging or whether they're good to go. It's a nice little trick like that, very visual to see whether they're charged or not. There is another way without a bit of card to do the same sort of thing. Yeah, I'll have to do it with this one. I was trying to show it. Can I open it? Yes, I've opened it. Right. And that is, and I don't do this, which is why it's not set up like that. I don't know whether you can see this. There's two different ways of putting them in. You can have all the batteries facing the same way, or you can alternate which way round they are. That's alternated, and you can decide that alternated means they need charging. If they're all facing the same way, they're ready to go. So that's another good trick on there. If you're wondering about the cases, you can get them online, these little four cases, and actually you can link them together and do things with them. They're just really helpful for storing batteries in, and it keeps them as a full set as well, so that they're equally being used or moving towards end of life at an equal pace on there. So that is tip number 2 for tonight. Let's move on. Yes. So let's look back at something else from the live stream. And I want to share with you one of my absolute favourite slideshows that I had the honour, I mean that quite sincerely as well, of sharing on the live stream over the last year. And that's a brilliant slideshow that was put together by Gary Platt, and I'm really glad that Gary's on the chat tonight. This is his slideshow, and it's called Holocaust. thank you to Gary for letting me share that with you, in the live streams. I find it a really moving one. I believe the photos were from a place that recycles shop mannequins at the mannequin graveyard, and the use of music, the information, and those photos together, I think is absolutely fantastic. And just thank you, Gary, for that. So moving along. Right, what have we got in the? Oh no, this is comments from the survey. Right, I just want to go through. There's various areas where you could give comments, and I just want to summarise the common themes which came through those. And in particular, the main comment that came through was the introduction was too long and repetitive. So you saw the cut down version tonight, and that's the sort of introduction I'm planning to do. So hopefully people will arrive on time and not miss the first item of the live stream, because I'm doing shorter intros. The other thing that was mentioned a few times actually about people who don't use Adobe stuff, and therefore that's an issue for them. And a fact that some people are only interested if the topic is a topic of interest to them. So certain aspects they have no interest in, so they don't tune in on that. So I think that's something I need to sort of think about, how to get people here more regularly. Is it by changing the topics regularly, or is it being more varied within the show? Still thinking that one through. I had a few comments from those who don't watch, and the main reason they don't or have stopped watching was too long, and I am trying very much to address that. That was one of the reasons I did the Wednesday nights one, was because it was getting too long. I thought, if I do it twice a week, that will solve it. For others, it simply clashes with other commitments. Now, if you're watching, this is a difficult one to sort of get over to people. If it does clash with your other commitments, this is one of the reasons it stays on YouTube. You don't have to watch live. There's benefit in watching live because you can interact with me and I can effectively talk to you. But if you can't, then watch it on the replay. And ask your questions in the comments and I'll respond to them there, or make your comments in the comments and I will respond to them there. We can still interact even though it's not live interaction. So don't let those other commitments put you off watching. Topics to cover. The one that kept coming up a lot was Affinity Photo. Now, I've not started really using Affinity Photo. I've opened it a couple of times, but not used it in anger yet. So I need to get to grips with that and I can start putting things in there. Moving objects is a very good one. It's one I want to do something on, but I don't have any real example images at the moment. I need to go out and shoot for that one. And that at the moment, obviously I can't do. So that one will have to wait a little while. People were asking about photography techniques without resorting to programs and apps. And I think I understand what's being asked for there. I just need to give it a bit of thought. Composition. I'm a big one on composition, as you know, and I've got composition topics coming up on that. Sessions coming up, as you'll see. One or two people are only really interested when it's portraiture and lighting and directing and things like that. And I had a couple of comments saying they want more Photoshop. So I've got this thing pulling in multiple directions here. People wanting techniques without programs, people wanting Affinity, and people wanting more Photoshop. So I'm going to try and balance that over the coming live stream, so that I don't know that I can keep everybody happy, but hopefully I can keep some of you happy. And somebody was asking about photography for shops and websites, and that's a brilliant one. I do have an old video on it on the channel, but that will be a good one for a live demo coming up. And other comments, somebody else said, be punchy and precise. And then I had somebody else saying I go too quick. Can't win. Variety appears to be the key to it, so that it keeps things moving. And people were saying that feedback on images should be linked where possible to the topic of the live stream, which I do try to do, or was trying to do, but it kind of fell apart with the Wednesdays because they were out of sync with the Sunday topics. And sometimes a Sunday topic doesn't relate to a particular theme for feedback. And somebody else saying separate shows for editing, which is fair enough. In fact, I have a whole channel for that. It's my Learn Lightroom one. So if that's what's interest, go and have a look at that. So I think separate videos for that. Okay, let's have another quick tip on there. And this is to do with rainy days. Now, you've probably heard me talk about this one before. Right, let me just change the display. No, not that one, that one. Yeah, so you can see things a little bit better. When it's rainy, I've mentioned this before, what I use is an old bar mat. Mine's, again, I don't know whether you can, no, it's almost invisible because of the green screen, unfortunately, because it's a green Carlsberg one. And it's probably the best camera cover in the world. But the way I do it is I drape it over, like that. I've got Velcro on it, so it just seals the whole thing together on there. And that protects it. It means any rainfall on it goes onto the towel, not onto the camera. I can use it to wipe the camera off nice and easily. It wicks water away. It's absolutely brilliant for that job. Now, you've probably heard me talk about that quite a bit, but it was only the other day, when a member of the Facebook group, Phil Howell, on his YouTube channel, was talking about doing exactly the same thing, but he uses a tea towel. And I thought, yeah, that's a great alternative to it. So I wanted to mention that. If you don't have a bar mat, which is the best thing because it's nice, thick and absorbent, it's designed to absorb liquids, use a tea towel, and that works just as well for protecting your camera on a rainy day. So that's tip number 3 for you. Right, and there's the photo. Right, okay, this live stream tonight is sponsored by you. Thank you to everyone who's bought me a cuppa, and I really appreciate it. If you do find the live streams helpful, and I've seen one come in very earlier, so thank you to that person. You know who you are. Thank you for the cuppa. I really appreciate it. If you do want to say thank you in a financial way, it's a great way of doing it. There's the link. It's buymeatea.com/Ian Butty. Links down below anyway. And what I do is I try to put one name on the mug each week. And this week, Andy Grady's names come round. So his name's on the mug. So cheers, Andy. Thanks for the cuppa. And hopefully one day I'll get some businesses to sponsor as well, and they can have a slot here. Right, okay, looking back, let's look back at one of the other live streams just to show something a little bit different. It's very short. It's a short clip, 2 or 3 sections from sensor cleaning, for those of you who may not have seen it. Yeah, it's switched on, menu, and on the Canons it's under the yellow tools menu. I hope you can just about see that on the screen. There's an option saying sensor clean. I hit set on there, and I've got auto cleaning, which is the startup shutdown cleaning that you've just seen. I've got clean now, which will shake the sensor, or clean manually, which is the one that I want. Clean manually will lock the mirror up. So if I select that, it gives me a warning on there saying the mirror will be locked up, and it tells me at the end to turn the camera off to put to reset everything on there. So use the dial and say OK. Now, so how do we actually clean it? Well, there are two ways of cleaning that I use. These are not the only ways. You can get little pads that go on and pull off dust and things like that. But the method I use is with this, and it's called an Arctic butterfly. And it's by a company called Visible Dust. They were the originals. There are third-party ones, which, looking at the Amazon reviews, the third-party ones, the comment seems to be you get what you pay for with them, that they're a bit cheap and not necessarily that good. And how it works, it's a brush. Oh, let me try and, yeah. It's a brush that with a motor to it that goes round like that. So hopefully you can see that whizzing away. And that's what we use to clean it. Except we don't put that into the camera whilst it's whizzing round. What's the point of the whizzing round? That whizzing round does two things. First of all, it generates a static charge, static electricity on there, which will attract any dust to the brush. And secondly, what it does is any dust that has accumulated on there, it throws off. Centripetal force, basic schoolboy physics, folks. So now that's charged up. So what I can do is I just do a simple stroke across there, one direction and the other direction. And that, if there was dust in there, it will pull it off. Okay, yeah, I was just looking back at one of my live demos and the technique of having something on the table and over my shoulder at the same time. I just needed to pick something. I thought that one was an interesting one to show because people often do comment about how to clean sensors, etc. Right, so moving along. Quick tip number 4, they're coming thick and fast now. And this one I have mentioned before, but I think it's worth commenting on, and that is about using the right shutter speed for handheld photos. Because I'm seeing a lot of photos where there's clearly camera shake on there. And I just want to try and emphasize what that rule of thumb is. And the rule of thumb is set the shutter to be the same as the focal length, but that's the 35mm equivalent focal length. So if you were shooting on a full frame camera, a 35mm camera, and you had a 100mm lens on there, you wanted to hand hold it, you would need to be shooting at least at 100th of a second. So that's the rule of thumb. So if you are shooting with a wide angle, 28mm with a full frame sensor, and you want to hand hold, you can hand hold at a 30th of a second. If you were shooting at 300mm, you'd need a 300th of a second. So I wanted to just keep mentioning this because I'm seeing this as a problem a lot with images. Now, the keywords I said on there are 35mm equivalent. So how do you know what that is? Well, find your crop factor for your camera. So for Canon crop sensors, they are typically 1.6. Nikon crop sensors are typically 1.5. A lot of the micro 2/3 type cameras, that will be a crop factor of 2. And if you've got Lightroom, you can often see it because it will tell you what your focal length is and what the equivalent, the 300mm one is. It's harder to work it out with mobile phones, but it's also harder to find out what your shutter speed is with a mobile phone as well. And unless you're using some specialist app, you're just reliant on the camera to do it. But for others, you should be able to work that out and just get the settings on there. So it was just a quick tip reminder on that one that I wanted to mention about keeping the camera steady and how to handhold it. Right, okay, let's have a look what's going on in the live chat. Gary was asking the question about limiting the number of images that people submit for feedback. Entirely agree. I'm going to comment a little bit more about that later, about how I'm going to handle feedback in the future on there. And I think, yes, I do need to limit the numbers on that. Also from Gary saying, was there any indication about why people appear to prefer Photoshop to Lightroom? Absolutely none at all. That was the really weird one on the survey. Now, it's 22 people who responded, so it's hardly a massive number statistically, and so it could potentially be skewed by just 1 or 2 people. So no, I don't know why that is. That was a surprise to me on there as to why that came up. And I don't have, because I wanted to give people the option of remaining anonymous, I don't have names for everyone who responded, and I cannot remember whether I had names for the people who were asking for Photoshop or not. So can't answer that one, sorry. Okay, so the future. Let's look forward. We've talked about this already, and I think from the feedback I get, what I need to aim for is under 60 minutes. That between 45 and 60, but towards the top end of that. Because there were a sizable number who were happy with anything under an hour and a half, anything under an hour and a quarter. So I think if I aim towards the top end and aim not to go over 60 minutes, that sort of puts me in the right ballpark for it. That's certainly what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to try and keep the show pacey. Sometimes I waffle, I know that, and I get sidetracked, sorry. And obviously, oh, I've just realised something. You couldn't see my slides. Keep the intro shorter, as I did tonight, and a couple of people said they thought it was much better tonight, which is good. I'll try and keep that format going on there. The feedback, right, okay, this is the big thing that I'm going to change. I'm dropping the Wednesday night show. I think, as a couple of people have said, it has diluted the audience on there. There's no doubt about it looking at the stats. I was getting in the 20s regularly on a Sunday night. When I split over, I was getting low teens on a Wednesday and mid to high teens on a Sunday. So it split the audience. It's not a good thing on that. So I'm dropping the Wednesday show. I will, however, because of the Facebook group, I want to be able to give feedback to people on that group. I will occasionally, and this is not going to be every week, I will occasionally, if there's sufficient images there that I feel I've got things to comment about, if I'm here in the studio, I might just fire up Lightroom and do a very quick run through of them, not live, edit out the fluffs and the mistakes, and then just stick it up on YouTube and let people know on the Facebook group, go and have a look at that. That's some feedback on there. And that's going to be that very quick sort of feedback, top of the head thoughts on there for the Facebook group stuff. The bulk of the feedback I'm going to bring into the Sunday night shows, but I am going to limit it to a much smaller selection of images. And that means for most people, I may only be able to show 1 or 2 images in a week. And I'm going to give preference to and priority to images that are on the theme for that night. So if I'm doing a session that's about portraiture, I'll try and do feedback on portraiture images. Those will get the priority over anything else. And over and above that, images received by email get even higher priority. So on the theme and received by email will bump you up the list on the chance of being chosen. And the other thing I'm going to do, there are certain people who posting images, and I'm afraid I'm giving the same feedback over and over again for them. And I've already, even prior to this, I was reducing the number of images I pick of theirs. I'll cut that down even more. So learn from your mistakes, folks. If I'm giving you feedback on something, act on it. I'm not going to continually repeat myself on the same theme. Right, Gary is saying email. Do I mean Dropbox? No, I don't mean Dropbox. You can either email images to me if they are JPEGs. I much prefer raw files, but if you've got large files you want to send, WeTransfer is my preferred method. You can send up to 20 gig, I think, through WeTransfer. Dropbox is a strange beast. It depends how much space you've got available to you. I don't have 20 gigs worth of space on Dropbox, so WeTransfer is a better solution for that. At some point, I'm not promising doing it in the immediate week, but I am going to put together a little video on just how to send images to me, particularly if you're a Lightroom user or a Photoshop user, so that I can get the information I need to be able to give you good feedback on there. The other one I am going to give more extensive feedback on is the Facebook image of the week. You know, I pick on a Sunday night, and that I will talk about in a little bit more detail, not huge detail, but a little bit more than just saying, well, hey, this is the image of the week. I'll talk about it, as I will tonight when I bring that one up, and explain why I chose that as the image of the week. So that's what I'm going to do with feedback on there. Post-production. This is an awkward one because we've got people wanting Photoshop, we've got people wanting some Lightroom, we've got people wanting Affinity, and we've got people wanting neither or none. So I'm going to try and restrict myself to one post-production tip or tutorial per live stream. And I'll try and keep them short, the 2-minute tip format. Some may be pre-recorded, some may be live. The exception to that will be if the theme of the evening is more to do with post-production. So if I was doing a session on monochrome, I know I've done that in the past, and then talking about monochrome conversion, you'd expect more than just one tip on there. But I'll try and do one Lightroom, one Affinity, one Photoshop, try and mix it up a little bit on there, so you've got that mix of the different tools with that. And where possible, I'm going to try and make that tip tie in with the theme of the week, so it's relevant to it. So what about the future of the Q&A part? Well, you'll notice I haven't called it live Q&A tonight. I've called it interaction, not Q&A. And that's what I want to keep it. It's more of a chat, me talking to you, you talking to me about photography on there. But it can still be questions. But where possible, if they're not questions I can just answer quickly, as I have done tonight, I'll take it as a theme for a future live stream. So I can deal with it properly, a pre-prepared question. And it might be that some shows I'll put the two together. It might be one question's not going to be enough to cover the whole show. So it might be a couple of themes going together on that, but I'll try and use the questions for themes for future live streams, which means those of you who don't watch live, putting your questions in the chat is, not the chat, in the comments is more important on there. On that. And you can always send me questions via email, of course. Right, tip number 5, my penultimate quick tip. And this is all about, follows on from the other thing about getting the right shutter speed. Again, I'm seeing so many blurred camera shake images. I just want to go through how to hold your camera. And this is a silly one in some respects, but I think it's important because I see a lot of people who don't know how to use a camera. I see a lot of people, I'm going to try and go at an angle here so you can see what I'm doing. Let me go to the full screen version, which is that. I see a lot of people holding the camera actually out in front of them when taking shots. And actually not only holding out in front, but holding it out like this. Can you see where my elbows are? They're up at the side. And that is never going to be steady. And those calculations on shutter speed are not based on you holding the camera like that. They are based on a braced camera position. So let's bring it in to the body, elbows into the body. If you do have to use the screen at the back for whatever reason, bring your elbows in, and that's a much sturdier position with the camera. But ideally, you want the camera up to your face. So again, that's bracing it against forehead, really, against your face as you're looking through. But also notice hand positions. How am I holding it? I've got one hand under the lens, one hand on the side. And that's a strong position, means I've got the control. You do see some people holding it one-handed and then just fingers using the controls like this. And they're wondering why they're getting blurred shots. So elbow in, brace it, hand in underneath to brace like that to hold the camera. Now, here's the other one. When you turn your camera this way, how do you hold it? Well, I see some people trying to do it like this, both hands at the bottom, like that, and that's not a very stable sort of position with the two hands together. It's better if you do that way. You see, I've got one hand at the top, it's hanging, which is a much more stable than that. You're hanging the camera. I've got my fingers underneath the grip. It's almost hanging. I'm actually holding it tight on there. And then the other hand underneath, bracing it. So I can get my elbows in. Notice that this elbow in tight, even as I'm using it, and this elbow right in, and that gives me a braced position. I can't do the standing up poses for it, but I hope those little tips about holding a camera you find useful, and hopefully will help deal with some of the camera shake issues that we've seen. So, how am I doing for time? 7 minutes left. Right. Let's have a look at the member photo of the week. Drum roll, please. This week's member photo is this amazing shot from Raul Diaz. It's Raeda before sunset and before a sandstorm. And there's a sandstorm on its way, so it's in Saudi Arabia. And you know what? It's a mobile a photograph taken with his mobile. And I wanted to include this one because A, it's an absolutely stunning image, and B, it proves you can create great shots even with a mobile on there. Why have I chosen it? Well, if we look at the rules of composition on this shot, we've got those lead-in lines bringing us into the middle of the image. We've got the horizon at a 1/3 line on there. We've got this, if you can see my cursor on here, we've got this framing of the dark cloud around the side here. We've got a mirroring across between this area, dark area at the top, dark area down here. So for me, it's ticking all the boxes. The colour toning on it is very sympathetic to the subject. I've seen sandstorms in the Middle East, and I know everything goes this brown colour. So it's an absolutely fantastic shot, and I really, really like it, Raoul. I hope you watch this probably on replay and hear these comments, because I think it's stunning. Now, I had to do a little bit of work to make it work as a banner image, and this is how it works as a banner image. I've had to crop, sadly, but I couldn't get it that long and thin as I normally do, so I've just used it on half the banner and used the other half for my logo. So congratulations, Raoul, for the image. I'll update the Facebook group shortly after the live stream's over. And all I can say, folks, keep posting. Will it be your image next week? Right, final quick tip for the evening. We're just on time. And that is about, if you use tripods, if you use anything like that, and you've got multiple cameras or multiple bits of kit, did you know you can make anything into quick release? Right, let me show you. That's my tripod, or rather the top of my tripod. Let me do the same again. Oh, I keep doing that. I really need that device I've ordered. Move that out the way, move that over a little bit. So that's the top of my tripod, you can see there. And if I tilt it so you can see the top of it, it's a quick release plate, Manfrotto one on there. And not surprisingly, I have a quick release plate on the bottom of my camera. And that will therefore just click in there. I'm not going to hold, I'm not going to let go because it'll fall on the floor. So I can release that. But because of that, I've bought loads and loads of those quick release plates. And I have put one on the bottom of my DJI Pocket, which means if I want to put that on a tripod, because it's got its own plate, it's really easy. I've got enough plates to go around without having to constantly be taking things off. I have another plate sitting on a bracket that's designed. You say he's trying to do this quickly. Yeah, I can't. That's designed to take my mobile phone. So I can put that on a stand quickly. And if I want to use my focusing rails, and here's the one where things come into the, I put one on the bottom of the focusing rails, but the top of the focusing rails was an ordinary screw. So the bottom part's fine, no problem at all to get that on a tripod. So what I did for the top section is I bought one of these, and it's the bottom part of a quick release plate, and it's got the thread. So if you've got a standard tripod thread, you can convert any tripod or any attachment using one of these. And this one often lives on, I've got a pseudo gorilla pod, and it often just lives on there. Or Friday, I was videoing a funeral, professional booking, and I used a lighting stand to get the Osmo Pocket high up to just give me cover in the as a cover shot for the whole service. So I just attached this to a lighting stand. So you can make anything into quick release, and they're worth their weight in gold, these sort of brackets, these quick release plates, and those, and you can just attach things together, particularly if you're traveling around or in a studio. You don't want to be spending your time screwing things up and undoing these through screws underneath, because they're a pain. You never get them tight out in the field. So get a whole load of those, and that will speed things for you. So now, live chat. Last look at the live chat. John saying, he suggests I pin the WeTransfer and feedback email the top of the Facebook group. Yeah, it's tricky to do that because when you pin something to the top, at the moment you pin something else, it just gets lost and it actually hides it. So I need to sort that one out on there. I think I've covered everything else that's in the chat on there. I don't think there's anything else I have missed on that, but I will try and find a way to get the feedback stuff pinned or on there. I'll find a way. Right, okay, so going back to there. Yeah, email me during the week if you've got any more questions on that. I'll cover them next week. So next Sunday, as we finish, we are going to be looking at negative space and minimalism. I thought minimalism was probably a good one to start our new compact versions of the live stream on. So if you've got any negative space images or minimalist images, please post them to the feedback section of the group this week, and I'll take a look at some of them, or preferably email them to feedback on there. So thank you, everyone. Oh no, I've gone over by 1 minute. My apologies. I nearly got in the hour on this one. So thank you ever so much, folks, for your support over the last year. Thank you for all the cups of tea. And until next Sunday, folks, just keep making great photos. And I'll see you here 7:30 next Sunday.